I woke to the shrill beep of a heart monitor and the sting of antiseptic biting the air. My arm was wrapped in white bandages, my throat raw from tubes I didn't remember. The nurse said I'd been unconscious for 2 days, but what she said next hurt more than the wounds. Your father signed the papers and left. Left. Like I was nothing. The only family I'd ever known had walked away before I even opened my eyes. For hours, I stared at the ceiling, trying to believe there was a reason, maybe fear, maybe shock. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd been unwanted my whole life. Then, just when I thought I was completely alone, 2 police officers stepped into my room with a file and a faded photo of a missing child. And that's the moment my entire world began to unravel. It happened on a Thursday night, the kind of night when the sky feels heavy enough to crush you. I was driving home from my second shift at the diner, half awake, the wipers struggling against the freezing rain. The radio crackled with static just before my tires hit a patch of black ice. In one breath, I was fine. In the next, screech. The steering wheel spun. Headlights flashed. Then metal screamed against metal. When I came to, the world was tilted. My windshield was shattered, my hands shaking on the airbag, blood crawling down my arm. Someone shouted in the distance, "Ma'am, don't move. Ambulance is coming." The next thing I remember was the blinding light of the ICU and the echo of my own heartbeat in the monitors. A doctor leaned over me, voice calm but grave. "Miss Harper, your arm is fractured in multiple places. We'll need surgery to save it." Surgery. Money. The words barely registered, but I knew what they meant: bills I couldn't pay, debts I couldn't survive. Still, there was only one person I could call: my father. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers, the IV tugging at my skin. It rang once, twice. Then he answered. "Dad," I whispered, my throat dry. "It's me. I was in an accident. I'm in the ICU. They said my arm." Silence. "Dad?" Then, cold and sharp, his voice cut through the static. "We can't do anything for you." Click. The line went dead. I stared at the dark screen, my pulse pounding louder than the machine's. The nurse nearby looked at me with quiet pity, but I turned away. He left me again. I pressed my forehead to the pillow, trying not to cry. Somewhere between the morphine and the tears, a thought clawed its way up my chest. Maybe this was my fault. Maybe I really wasn't worth coming back for. Outside, thunder rolled over the hospital roof. Inside, I made myself a promise I couldn't yet understand. If I ever walked out of that room, I'd find out why my own father could look at me and feel nothing at all. The first night after surgery was endless. Machines hummed beside me, keeping rhythm with my heartbeat, while the rain outside tapped a cruel lullaby against the window. I stared at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of footsteps I knew would never come. Morning arrived, pale and merciless. I tried calling Dad again, straight to voicemail. The screen blinked, call failed, as if even the phone knew better than to try. By noon, 2 nurses whispered outside my door. I caught fragments. No emergency contact. Signed release. Unreachable. Unreachable. That word clung to me like the smell of antiseptic. "A police officer stopped by that afternoon routine," he said. "We need a statement about the accident, Miss Harper. Any family who can help with insurance or medical consent?" "Just my father," I answered automatically. He paused, pen hovering. "Has he been in touch?" My voice cracked. "Not since the day I woke up." The officer's expression softened, but he didn't press further. He just nodded, mumbled something about paperwork, and left me with the silence I'd already learned to fear. That night, the hospital cafeteria's soup cooled untouched on my tray. The nurse, a kind woman named Elise, sat at the foot of my bed while changing my IV. "You have anyone coming by?" she asked gently. "No," I said. "Just me." Her eyes lingered on me, pitying, yet curious. "Sometimes people keep secrets," she murmured, "even from their own children." I wanted to ask what she meant, but my throat closed. I turned my face toward the rain-smeared window instead. The next morning, the world felt heavier, like the hospital walls had grown thicker overnight. I was half asleep when the door opened again. Only this time, it wasn't a nurse. 2 men in dark suits stood there, badges gleaming against their coats. "Miss Claire Harper?" the older one asked. Yes, I said cautiously, clutching the thin blanket around me. He exchanged a quick look with his partner before stepping closer. We're with the Rockford Police Department. There's something unusual about your records. And if so, I frowned. What do you mean? He placed a sealed folder on my lap. Your hospital ran a DNA verification through the national system. The results raised a few questions. I stared at him, confused and half numb. Questions about what? He hesitated, lowering his voice. About who you really are. The older detective, his badge red, Rhodes pulled out a manila folder and set it gently on my lap, as if the weight of it might crush me. Inside was a faded photograph, a little blonde girl with messy curls and a crooked smile. She was taken from her home in Albany, New York, 27 years ago, Rhodes said quietly. Her name was Emily Whitmore. I blinked, confused. Why are you telling me this? His partner, a younger man with tired eyes, shifted awkwardly. Because your hospital blood test matched the Whitmore family's DNA file. Perfectly. The room spun a little. The machines beside me beeped faster, as if my heart was protesting. That doesn't make sense, I said. There's no way. I was born here in Illinois. My dad... Rhodes cut me off gently. Your birth certificate appears to be forged. The social security record tied to your name was filed 2 years after your supposed date of birth. There's no hospital record of your delivery anywhere in this state. I laughed, but it came out broken. You're saying my father kidnapped me? Neither of them spoke. That silence was louder than any confirmation. I shook my head, gripping the sheets. You're wrong. My mother died when I was 12. She loved me. She couldn't have known. The younger detective hesitated. We believe she was involved at first, maybe frightened later. But we don't think she's the one who planned it. Rhodes unfolded another document, a ransom letter, the ink aged to a rusty brown. Your biological parents, Nathaniel and Vivian Whitmore, received 3 ransom demands after your disappearance. They paid each one, but you were never returned. He looked at me carefully. Until now, I couldn't breathe. The world narrowed to a blur of sound, the beep of machines, the drip of IV fluid, the rain outside. My father's voice echoed in my head. We can't do anything for you. I'd thought it was cruelty. Now it sounded like guilt. I want proof, I whispered. I want another test. Rhodes nodded. We've already ordered it. You'll have results within 24 hours. He slid a card onto the tray beside me. A representative from the Whitmore family will arrive tomorrow. They've been waiting for this call for nearly 3 decades. I stared at the photo again, the little girl with my eyes, my chin, my birthmark just below the right eye. I touched the same spot on my own face, feeling dizzy. After they left, I sat alone, the file open in front of me, every page whispering a truth I wasn't ready to face. If they were right, my whole life had been a lie. I looked down at my cast-wrapped arm, the wound that had brought me here. Maybe it wasn't an accident that broke my world. Maybe it was fate, finally tearing open the walls of a lie that had trapped me for 27 years. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little girl's face, my face staring back at me from the photograph. By morning, I was still awake when the nurse wheeled in breakfast. Someone's here to see you, she said softly, eyes wide, as if she'd just seen a ghost. I frowned. Who? Before she could answer, the door opened. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped inside. His hair was silver at the temples, his expression a mix of exhaustion and hope that didn't seem to belong to a stranger. He hesitated, one hand clutching the doorknob as if afraid I might disappear if he blinked. Miss Harper? His voice trembled slightly. Yes, I said, guarded. He took a careful step forward. I'm Nathaniel Whitmore. The name hit me like a thunderclap. I'd heard it whispered on the news once. A billionaire industrialist, founder of Whitmore Technologies, the kind of man who lived in headlines, not hospitals. I froze. You're the man the detectives mentioned. He nodded slowly. But I didn't come here as a CEO. His throat tightened. I came here as your father. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline that never came. My father? He smiled weakly, tears glinting in his eyes. Emily, my little girl. The name sounded foreign and familiar all at once. My chest tightened. Don't call me that, I whispered. Please, he said softly, moving closer. I know this is impossible to take in, but I've waited 27 years to say your name again. My hands trembled under the blanket. If what you're saying is true, then where have you been my whole life? He exhaled, voice cracking. Searching. Every day. Every year. Your mother and I, we never stopped. We hired investigators, followed leads, drained everything we had, but you were gone. I looked away, blinking back tears. Gone? I was right here. I was growing up thinking I wasn't enough for anyone, that my father hated me. He swallowed hard. Because he wasn't your father, Emily. He was your kidnapper. The room fell silent. I felt the air thicken, heavy and cold. He reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the bedside table, a tiny silver locket. This was yours, he said softly. It has your baby picture inside. You wore it the day you were taken. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a photo, the same toddler with messy curls and a shy grin. My throat closed. I don't remember, I whispered. That's okay, he said gently. What matters is that you're here now. He hesitated, then added, your mother is waiting. She hasn't stopped setting a place for you at the dinner table, for 27 years. Tears blurred my vision. I wanted to believe him. To believe I wasn't just a mistake that got left behind. But the thought that my entire life had been a lie made my stomach twist. Nathaniel reached out, his hand hovering inches from mine. I know it's too much, he said softly, but you're not alone anymore. For the first time, I didn't pull away. I let his hand rest over mine. And for the first time in my life, someone's touch didn't feel like an obligation, it felt like home trying to remember me. Detective Rhodes returned that afternoon, a thin folder tucked under his arm. His expression told me he wasn't here to comfort me. Nathaniel stood beside my bed, still in his suit but looking 10 years older since that morning. Rhodes cleared his throat. Miss Harper, or rather, Miss Whitmore, we've confirmed the results. The DNA is a 99.99% match. You are the biological daughter of Nathaniel and Vivian Whitmore. Nathaniel's breath caught. He looked at me like he wanted to memorize the words forever. But I couldn't celebrate. My pulse pounded as I asked the question that had been burning since dawn. What about Mark Harper, the man who raised me? Rhodes opened the folder. His real name is Marcus Hale. 27 years ago, he was a contracted security guard at the Whitmore estate in Albany. He had access to your home, your schedule, everything. He and his girlfriend, a woman named Laura, took you one night while the nanny was preparing your bottle. Nathaniel closed his eyes, pain flickering across his face. They sent 3 ransom notes, Rhodes continued. Your parents paid each one nearly $2 million in total, but the abductors vanished. For years, the trail went cold. Hale and Laura changed their identities, moved to the Midwest, and forged your birth records under the name Claire Harper. My heart sank. So everything I've ever known was fake. Rhodes nodded slowly. Yes. Every document, every ID, every story they told you. I stared at the edge of my blanket, my fingers twisting the fabric. He used to say Mom died of pneumonia when I was 12. Was that true? Yes, Rhodes said carefully. But she wasn't your mother. According to our research, Laura died of a lung infection in Wisconsin. She kept her secret until the end. I tried to breathe, but the air felt too heavy. My chest burned. He treated me like a burden, I whispered. Like I owed him for existing. Nathaniel took a step forward, voice trembling. Because he knew, Emily. He saw your face every day, a reminder of what he stole. Guilt doesn't always make people kind. Sometimes it makes them cruel. I turned to him, tears stinging my eyes. Then why did he leave me? If he was so afraid of being caught, why not run? Rhodes exchanged a look with his partner. Maybe he realized it was over. The hospital DNA verification would have exposed him. Leaving you there was his way of disappearing before the truth caught up. It hit me like a punch. He hadn't left because he was disgusted or overwhelmed, he'd left because he was guilty. I pressed my hand against my chest, my heart beat frantic. He walked out to save himself, not me. Nathaniel's voice softened. And that's why we're here now, to make sure he never hurts anyone again. I looked up at him, at the man who claimed to be my real father, and for the first time, I saw a reflection of myself in someone's eyes. Still, Anger boiled beneath the shock. The man who had raised me had also destroyed me. I want to see him, I said, my voice steady now. I want to look him in the eyes and hear the truth from his own mouth. Nathaniel hesitated, then nodded. All right, but you won't be alone this time. And as the sun dipped below the horizon outside my hospital window, I felt it, the first spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not despair, resolve. The drive to Milwaukee felt endless. Nathaniel sat beside me in the back seat of the unmarked police car, silent except for the quiet hum of his breath. I could see the reflection of red and blue lights flashing across the rain-streaked window. The closer we got, the more the memories clawed at me, the shouting, the cold dinners, the slammed doors. Detective Rhodes turned to me. You don't have to do this, Miss Whitmore. We can handle the questioning. But I shook my head. No, he stole 27 years from me. I'm going to hear him say it. When we pulled into the cracked driveway, the house looked exactly like I remembered, peeling paint. An uncut yard, blinds drawn tight. It wasn't a home, it was a cage disguised as one. The officers went in first. Moments later, Rhodes waved me forward. Nathaniel followed a step behind. Mark, or Marcus Hale, sat at the kitchen table, handcuffed, his shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than I remembered, like the years had already started taking him apart. His eyes lifted when I entered. For a second, he almost smiled. Claire, he rasped. I froze. That name, the lie he gave me, scraped against my chest. Don't call me that, he frowned, confused. What's wrong with you? What's going on? I took a step closer, my voice sharp. What's wrong? You kidnapped me. He blinked, the color draining from his face. They told you that, didn't they? The cops, that rich man. That rich man, I cut him off, is my father. My real one. Mark's jaw clenched. You don't remember what it was like back then. I saved you. You were crying, screaming they didn't care about you. Stop lying, I shouted, slamming my palm on the table so hard the metal cuffs rattled. You didn't save me, you stole me. You turned my life into a nightmare. You made me believe I wasn't worth loving. Nathaniel stepped forward, his voice steady but full of fire. You took my daughter for money, and when the money ran out, you broke her spirit to keep her quiet. Mark laughed bitterly. You think money makes you a father? You had everything, and I had nothing. I gave her food, a roof, clothes. You gave me fear, I screamed. Every day I woke up wondering what I did wrong. Every time you looked at me, I saw it. The hate, the disgust, the shame you couldn't hide. He stared at me, his mouth trembling. You were a reminder, he said quietly, of what I'd done. I thought if I kept you close, I could make it right. But every day I looked at you, it got worse. I couldn't stand it anymore. Nathaniel's voice broke through, quiet and cold. And so you left her in a hospital to die. Mark's hands tightened into fists. I couldn't do it anymore. I thought maybe she'd be safer without me. I took another step closer, tears burning my eyes. Safer? You abandoned me because you were afraid of being caught. You didn't leave to protect me. You left to protect yourself. For a moment, no one spoke. The clock on the wall ticked, steady and cruel. Mark's eyes flickered between me and Nathaniel. His shoulders sagged. I'm sorry, he whispered. But the words felt empty, too late. Too late for what he'd done. Rhodes nodded to the officer beside him. Marcus Hale, you are under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The metallic click of the cuffs echoed through the room. As they pulled him to his feet, Mark turned to me one last time. I loved you in my own way, he said softly. I met his gaze. Steady now. Then I hope one day you understand what real love looks like. He didn't answer. The door shut behind him with a dull thud that sounded like the past finally locking itself away. Nathaniel placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. It's over, Emily. But it wasn't over, not yet. Because the truth didn't erase the years I'd lost. It didn't bring back birthdays, or lullabies, or the warmth I'd never known. As the car pulled away from that house, I looked out the window one last time. The lights of the police cruisers faded into the distance, swallowed by the rain. I wasn't Claire Harper anymore. I wasn't the unwanted girl left behind. I was Emily Whitmore. And for the first time, I felt the weight of my name. The story hit every headline by the next morning. Kidnapped heiress found after 27 years. My name, both of them, flashed across TV screens, newspapers, and phones. Everyone wanted to know who I really was. But I didn't even know myself. The trial began within weeks. Courtrooms, cameras, reporters, it all felt like a storm I was trapped inside. I sat behind the glass wall of the victim's section, watching the man who had raised me shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit. His hair was grayer, his shoulders bent. He didn't look like a monster, he just looked small. The prosecutor's voice echoed through the courtroom. Marcus Hale kidnapped Emily Whitmore in 1998, extorted millions from her parents, and built an entire life on lies. Mark never once looked at me. Not during the testimony. Not during the sentencing. He stared straight ahead, hollow. When the verdict was read, life imprisonment without parole, I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just silence. Afterward, the reporters swarmed as I left the courthouse. Miss Whitmore, do you forgive him? Will you return to your father's company? Do you remember anything from the night you were taken? I said nothing. Nathaniel shielded me with his arm, guiding me through the chaos toward the waiting car. Once inside, the noise faded, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, softly, he said, "Your mother's been waiting for you." The flight to Albany was quiet. I stared out the window, watching clouds stretch endlessly beneath us, wondering if the sky had looked the same the night I disappeared. When we arrived at the Whitmore estate, the air smelled like rain and pine. The mansion loomed behind tall iron gates, the same place I had been taken from all those years ago. My chest tightened as the car rolled up the long driveway. The front door opened before I could reach it. A woman stood there, elegant but fragile, her hair streaked with silver, her hands trembling. When her eyes met mine, she gasped, covering her mouth. "Emily," she whispered. My knees went weak. "Mom?" She rushed forward, and I fell into her arms. The scent of lavender and tears filled the air. She was crying, whispering my name over and over like a prayer she'd been afraid to say aloud for decades. "I'm here," I managed, my voice cracking. "I'm home." Nathaniel's arms wrapped around both of us, his face buried in her shoulder. For the first time, I understood what belonging felt like. Later that evening, my mother showed me a small bedroom at the end of the hall. It looked like time had stopped. Pastel yellow walls, a crib in the corner, a faded teddy bear still waiting on the bed. "I couldn't bring myself to change anything," she said through tears. "Every week I cleaned it hoping you'd come back." I sat on the bed, tracing my fingers over the old quilt. For the first time in 27 years, the house didn't feel like someone else's story. It felt like mine. The months after the trial felt unreal, like living in someone else's memory. Therapy sessions, interviews, foundation events, everything moved faster than my heart could process. People called me lucky, but they didn't understand. You can't call it luck when your entire life begins with a lie. Nathaniel offered me a place at the Whitmore Foundation, an organization helping families of missing children. I said yes, not because I wanted to stand behind his name, but because I wanted to give other lost kids the ending I almost never got. I moved into a small apartment near the city, far from the cameras and whispers. It wasn't grand like the mansion, but it was mine. Some nights, I'd sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the city lights blur into gold. That's when the memories came, his voice, his anger, his silence. For years, I let them haunt me. But one night, something shifted. I opened my old hospital journal and wrote, "Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about me. I forgive to be free." The next morning, I visited the prison. Not for closure, not to see him suffer, just to prove to myself I could. Mark looked older, thinner, smaller. He didn't speak when I walked in. I placed a single photograph on the table, a picture of me with Nathaniel and Mom, smiling in the garden. "I wanted you to see this," I said quietly, "because I finally understand something. You didn't destroy me. You just delayed who I was meant to be." He stared at the picture, his eyes wet but wordless. I stood and walked away. Outside, sunlight spilled across the parking lot, soft, warm, almost forgiving. Later that evening, I returned home and stood on my balcony, feeling the cool wind brush my face. For the first time, I didn't feel broken. I felt light. I whispered into the night. Dad, wherever you are, both of you, I forgive you. Somewhere, deep inside, a knot finally loosened. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means choosing peace over poison. And as the city shimmered below me, I realized something simple yet profound. I was no longer the girl left behind in an ICU bed. I was Emily Whitmore, a survivor, a daughter, and finally, my own person.